In this GNS3 topology, I have 4 iOS V Layer 2 switches and 2 iOS routers. We're going to concentrate on the switch configuration and VTP advertisements in this network. These switches have no configuration and have just been added to the topology. What I'll do now is start switch 1 only and leave the other switches turned off, so that we can configure VTP and VLANs on this switch without any advertisements on any of the other switches. And then what I'll do is show you various scenarios when I turn on the other switches and change VTP to different modes. So the switch is just booted. Show VLAN brief. At the moment we only see VLAN 1 as well as 1002 to 1005, but we'll ignore those VLANs because they are non-Ethernet VLANs, and Cisco don't support them anymore, as you can see over here. Show VTP status. Here's the command. Versions of VTP supported are 1 to 3. The switch is currently running VTP version 1. No VTP domain has been configured. It's null or blank. VTP pruning is disabled. VTP traps are disabled. This is the device ID, and the device hasn't been configured. Note the VTP operating mode server. The maximum number of VLANs supported on this switch is 1005. Just because 802.1q supports 4096 VLANs doesn't mean that switches support that number of VLANs. The number of VLANs supported by a switch is switch dependent. Number of existing VLANs is 5. We have VLAN 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 VLANs exist. Notice the configuration revision is 0. So I'll name the switch switch 1. Let's create another VLAN, VLAN 2, and we'll give it a name of sales. Show VTP status. Note please that the configuration revision has changed to 1. It was previously set to 0, but because we made a change by adding a VLAN, the revision number has changed to 1, and the number of VLANs that exist has changed to 6. VLAN 3, name, let's say IT. The VLAN name is just a description. Show VTP status. Revision number has changed to 2. Number of existing VLANs has changed to 7. Show VLAN brief. We now have the default VLAN as well as sales and IT. And again, I'm going to ignore these VLANs for our discussion. Show flash. Now there are a whole bunch of files in flash on this switch, but the important one to point out is the VLAN.dat file. So more flash VLAN.dat. Notice we can see sales and IT in the list of VLANs configured in the VLAN.dat file. So at the moment, to summarize, show VTP status. A domain name hasn't been configured. We should configure that. We'll leave the default version at version 1. This switch is acting as a server. Configuration revision is 3. Number of VLANs configured is 6. So before I start other switches in the topology, let's set the host name. Let's set the VTP domain to CCNA. Notice the domain name was changed from null to CCNA. There are a number of other VTP options, such as VTP mode. For now, we'll leave this one as a server. Show interface trunk. No trunks are currently configured. Show interfaces gigabit 0/0, or rather switch port. So the command used is show interfaces gigabit 0/0 switch port. What I want to point out here is that dynamic auto is being used. This switch will not initiate trunks with neighboring switches. That's different to a lot of Cisco switches, which by default will initiate trunking, and hence VTP information will automatically be propagated. So I'm going to change the mode here to dynamic desirable. So do show interface gigabit 0/0 switch port. So here's the command again. We can see that the administrative mode has been changed to dynamic desirable, but at the moment it's static access because no trunking has been negotiated. So show interfaces trunk. There are no trunks on the switch. However, when we start up this switch, switch 1 will now initiate trunking with switch 2 using dynamic trunk protocol. So we've changed the mode from auto to desirable. The reason again for setting this to dynamic desirable is that that is often the mode that you'll see on physical switches. I'll demonstrate VTP on physical switches in a moment, and you'll see that they will form trunks automatically and exchange VTP information with other switches automatically. So let's turn on switch 2, and we'll see if it automatically negotiates with switch 1 to set up a trunk here, and we'll also see whether it exchanges VTP information.